Good morning, and welcome back to yet another pep talk. In this case, it is a pre-employment podcast, but I wanted to talk about the concept of thermodynamics today. What thermodynamics and what it is. What is it? Who knows? I do. And the reason I want to talk about that is because as I'm leaving my house at 6:14 a.m. right now, which I'm actually running a little late. Well, late by my standards. I'm still plenty early. It is 23 degrees in my car, Fahrenheit. And it is freezing cold. I am not the most well dressed for this either. I only have my leather jacket and a single leather driving glove. I don't know what happened to the other one. Lost it 2 years ago. Anyway. So I want to talk about thermodynamics, mainly because it is another one of those concepts that influences our daily lives in so many different ways. At first I was going to talk about temperature, and then I was like, I'll talk about heat transfer, and then I was like, I'll just do the whole thing. So, where to start? Well, thermodynamics, just like anything else in the universe, has some laws behind it. There's, as far as I'm aware, okay, so there's two laws behind it. I believe there's two, and then you can start tacking in some third stuff, caveats about it. But two main things are laws of thermodynamics are that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That's a big one. You can't just make stuff out of nothing. I only know one person that can do that. And the other is that energy transfers from, well, this is more heat, but it can apply to pretty much all energy too. Energy transfers from high to low, meaning it's you have anytime you have energy transferring, whether it be heat, whether it be radiation, whether it be my will to live, anything like that is going to transfer from contents of high to low. So colder things get warmer when you place them in the sun, or, which, pet peeve of mine, cold doesn't actually exist. The only time anything is cold is if it is exactly 0 degrees Kelvin, Rankine, or negative 273.15 Celsius. Or was it negative, is it 468.59 Rankine? I think it's either 468 or 489, but I think it's 0.54. Anyway, no one really uses the Rankine scale unless you are an aerospace engineer, like I was, or, well, you're British, I guess. Although they might still use Celsius. They definitely use Celsius. Anyway, my fingertips are freezing, so I wanted to talk about heat transfer first. I know it's the second law of it. Heat transfers from high to low. So, it's 23 degrees, it's now warming up, 25 degrees in my car. And my fingers, well, they're probably not my body temperature at this point, but at some point, features of my body were, a cool 96, 97 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm on the high side. And when it's cold out, not that it's actually cold, but we use cold to describe things that are just, have less heat energy than the other thing we're talking about. Same thing with hot. Stuff is hot when it has more energy than the thing that we're referencing it to. Or if it feels hot, which it feels hot only if it has more energy than the things we're referencing it to. Because our bodies are cool and can sense temperature changes. There's in one of our, I think it's the second layer of our skin, we can detect temperature change. But I'm not going to dive into biology. But anyway, so I'm freezing in my car right now, which, let me get my heat going actually, without getting hit by a car. Yeah, hopefully that'll warm it up. But yeah, so my fingers are freezing because my fingers are much, they have more energy in them than the cold surroundings, or like my steering wheel, or the handle to open my car. My fingers have more energy, so it's weird when you're cold. It almost feels like either cold is entering you or your energy is being sapped away. Well, the more accurate one is your energy is being sapped away. You are literally losing energy. This is why people like to sleep in the cold as well, generally speaking, is when it's cold, your body is rejecting more energy to its surroundings, and that causes two things to happen. Causes your body to want to restore itself, which your body restores itself when it's sleeping. But also, when you have less energy, you will feel more tired. And in this case, you have less energy, like, not from, sugars in your bloodstream, but less energy from actual heat in your body. Your enthalpy as a person is lower. If you're not sure what enthalpy is, it's the word used to describe the quantity of heat energy in something. Yeah. And I should probably say what heat energy is. So, heat energy is actually kinetic energy. And temperature, it ties in with this. Temperature is the measure of the average kinetic energy of whatever you're measuring. So, like, I don't know, if you got room temperature is around 72 degrees Fahrenheit, or like 20 something Celsius, 25 Celsius-ish, I think. Again, I'm in my car, don't quote me on the conversions. It's that temperature, quote unquote, is the average temperature in that room. Stuff is hotter than that and stuff is colder than that, but when you put it all together and sum it up, it equals that. So, because when we're measuring matter, we're not measuring individual atoms most of the time. We're measuring a cloud or a sum or a collection of atoms, because they're so small that our normal tools can't differentiate between them. And it's good, because having a summation is a lot more useful than measuring the specific heat content of an atom, a single atom. But yeah, so that's enthalpy, that's heat, and that's temperature. Kinetic energy stuff is, so I mentioned I think 2 pep talks ago, stuff is always vibrating, and that vibration, how intense it is tied in with the kinetic energy of the object, which is tied in with its heat. Now you might be thinking, like, oh, kinetic energy, so stuff moving is hot? And it's like, well, yes and no. So, like, I'm driving, my car is moving right now, and just because my car is moving doesn't mean it's hotter than everything else around it. Now, it actually is because the engine's going, but that's because my reference frame is my car. So, when you get into physics, you start talking about reference frames, and the reference frame I'm referring to, when I refer to kinetic energy and heat, is the equilibrium point of atoms and molecules and such. Like, I'm not talking about, like, oh, I was at the stoplight and now I'm not, I'm going forward. It's much smaller than that when you talk about temperature. You are talking about individual atoms and molecules, but you expand it to averages for objects. And that energy will transfer itself through things as well. So, and some things transfer heat energy better than others. Like, air is actually a great insulator if it's not moving. It has like a thermal, well, I don't want to start quoting random thermal coefficients, but it's not the lowest thing, but it's pretty darn low, which is good. Now, stuff like aluminum or stuff, actually silver, has really high heat conductance and energy transfer. Silver both for electricity and heat. I can't remember if silver is the actual best conductor of heat or not, but it is the standard for electricity. And that has to do with the electrons and the orbital shells for the electricity side of things. And for heat, metals, when they bond, they do these. So you have ionic and covalent bonds, and then you have like these metal bonds, metallic bonds. And that's where they basically, it's like a mix of the two, where they're sharing electrons, but also electrons are moving along them, because they don't hold on to them very tightly. And you get this cool blend of basically stuff from the atom is able to transfer to other stuff in nearby atoms easier without breaking bonds. So it's, generally speaking, and when you break those bonds you get molten metal, and molten metal is some serious stuff. I digress on the molten metal. But yeah, so thermodynamics, energy transfers from hot to low. Energy can't be created or destroyed. I could probably expand upon that if you want, so I'm going to, because I know you want it. All stuff in the universe is finite. There is a fixed amount of stuff in the universe, as far as we are aware by modern scientific principles. And I'm talking about stuff in the universe. If you start talking about the stuff outside the universe, well, that gets more complicated. Plus, we can't observe what's outside the universe without aspects of our being that are also outside the universe. And I'm not going to get into the religiousness of that at the moment, but maybe soon, maybe in the future. Anyway, so stuff in the universe had a fixed point, and there's only so much of it. We live in a finite reality. There's not infinite matter in the universe. There's a ton of matter in the universe, but there's not infinite. And that non-infinite matter has non-infinite levels of energy associated with it. And that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. So, like, if I hit a baseball into a wall, well, whoever owns that house is going to be pissed because I just broke the drywall. But also, that baseball hit the wall. The impact generated a pressure wave of sound. The kinetic energy transferred into the wall as heat, most likely at the instantaneous point where it hit because of the friction. Its potential energy was lowered because it has been stopped, because its velocity had ceased, hopefully. It might bounce off the wall, but I'm throwing it hard enough to get lodged, is my mind. And I'm sure there are many, many, many other types of energies I could go into, but that's where the three main ones, it's going to be heat, and potential energy is going to drop. If you're high on the wall, you might have a gravitational potential, but besides that, stuff's going to drop. And then some of it goes out as sound, as a pressure wave, which I talked about, again, 2 pep talks ago, I think. Anyway, it's starting to warm up in my car, which is good. And it's warming up in my car because heat transferred from the engine to the cabin through the heating and AC system. And that's simply, and I'm feeling it, not because the heat from the engine was warmer than the outside air, but because the heat from the engine is warmer than my body at the moment. So heat is transferring into me as a being, as a person, which is pretty darn cool. Electric cars, actually, they don't have the combustion process, which like, they have motors. So their heats are all electric heaters, and that just tears through your battery, from what I heard. Because heating up stuff requires a lot of energy. And it actually, well, that's a generalization, because it depends on the object. So, like, water, for example, has one of the highest specific heat capacities of any material, pretty much. I believe it's 4.19 kilojoules per kilogram. That sounds about right. Or 1,000 BTUs per pound. And I think that's pound mass. That or BTUs units convert nicely, and then you don't need pound mass. But there's different objects, physical objects, have a measure by which how much heat they can absorb before their temperature changes. And remember, temperature is a measure of average kinetic energy. So it's basically like you got to dump more. You got to get the thing vibrating more for its temperature to go up. But you need more energy for some things to vibrate over other things. So that's where that comes in. Let's see. Thermodynamics. Did I talk about friction yet? I don't think I did. Friction. Friction is a very crucial part of reality. You rub your hands together right now, you're feeling friction, and it's getting hot, I bet. Your hands get warm when you do that. So, friction is energy transferred, usually from kinetic energy to thermal energy, due to objects colliding. That's pretty much the simple way to think about friction, but it has much bigger, things beyond that. Because, like, for example, friction is how we're able to walk. The reason that you can take a step and not instantly slip, hopefully, and if you do, use life alert, but if you slip and fall and you can't get up, that's because there wasn't enough friction on the surfaces you were contacting with your foot. Friction is the tendency also for objects to stay put, because if they don't, they lose energy. That might be a bad definition of friction, though. Regardless, for practicality, for thermodynamics, it's the energy that is transferred to thermal energy when two objects collide. So you rub your hands together, you're taking the kinetic energy of your hands moving, and you're turning the thermal energy, but you're also dumping more energy into your muscles from your ATP pumps. So it's you're putting more energy in. That's why your hands keep moving. But if you gave your hands a fixed amount of energy and told them to rub together, you probably wouldn't get that far, and you probably wouldn't generate that much heat. Stuff like fire, for example, it has a chemical reaction, and that's how it generates heat. That's different than friction. Friction is specifically when objects rub each other in a kinetic energy. In the case of fire, it goes potential energy through chemical reaction and thermal energy via breaking bonds. Kinetic or heat and friction are different than that. So, the friction is useful for moving, but also very, very detrimental when you get up to high speeds. That's probably one of the greater caps on why we can't travel as fast as we do through the atmosphere, is because of friction. Yeah, that's actually the main thing, I would say. When you start getting the higher speeds, you get this concept where the air around you is colliding with you in such a fast way that it causes a ton of friction. And that ton of friction is going to heat up your vessel. And when vessels, we're saying airplanes, let's say airplanes, when airplanes heat up, they lose performance efficiency usually in their engines. Their wings might warp due to the temperature change, which that's something interesting too, that materials have different shapes based on their temperature. And that's simply due to thermal expansion and contraction, which I'm surprised I didn't mention that. I also just realized I missed my exit to work, so I gotta figure out how to get to work now. That might cut this one short, but yeah, heat transfer is pretty cool in that regard. Yeah, now I'm all sorts of like worried and paranoid. This is what happens when you're distracted in the morning. See, on the way home, it's easy. I know the route. I'm still getting used to coming into work in the morning, but that's fine. Anyway, I hope that you found this useful, thermodynamics and all that, and I hope that you stay warm out there, whatever that means to you. I hope that your body stays its relative temperature. And yeah, so thanks for listening to this pep talk. I hope to hear from you in the comments, or simply just, if you know me, say hi. If you don't know me, get to know me, and keep tuning in. Again, this is pretty low effort. This is just me trying to be interesting, so no hard feelings if you don't like it, or if the format's really crappy. But anyway, have a wonderful day.